Good morning, it's the 16th of December today, and we're here to bring you the daily posts, scriptures and thoughts and ideas that we hope will help you through the day. The scripture is from Psalm 110 and verse 4. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. If you're reading the Bible in a year today, we need to move through Amos chapters 4, 5 and 6, and Revelation chapter 7. The thoughts of the day. The good news of the gospel is that there is a resource of divine mercy which is able to overcome a contradiction within our own souls, which we cannot overcome by ourselves. The man who hates God is not far from the kingdom. It is the spiritually indifferent man who has placed himself almost beyond hope. Every day you are alive is a special occasion. Every minute, every breath is a gift from God. The motivational thought for the day: religion is man-made. The gospel is the gift of God. On this day, Pilgrim Fathers in their ship the Mayflower arrived in Massachusetts on this day in 1620. In 1773, the Boston Tea Party occurred on this day. Considered as one of the key events in the American Revolution, the Tea Party occurred when protesters in Boston, a territory controlled by the British, dumped heavily taxed British tea into Boston Harbour. It wasn't especially drinkable, I don't think, but there you go. In 1809, on this day, by an act of the French Senate, Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte was divorced from his wife Josephine. And in 1907, on this day, in a deliberate show of strength, an American fleet of 16 battleships departed on a round-the-world tour. In 1917, an explosion in Halifax Harbour in Nova Scotia left almost 6,000 people injured. And in 1920, an 8.5 earthquake rocked the Guangdong province in China, killing an estimated 200,000 people. In 1944, in World War II, the start of what became known as the Battle of the Bulge. In a last attempt to avoid defeat, the Germans launched a surprise counter-offensive in the Ardennes. After its initial successes, the attack falters, and eventually they were defeated, of course. In the year 2004, on this day, NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft became the first to cross the termination shock, which is a zone where solar and interstellar winds merge. The personal story of the day: beyond the critics. Sometimes, when I've been falsely accused, I have found myself questioning my sincerity. When I do, I follow the example of David in Psalm 26, where in verse 11 he says, "But for me, I will walk in mine integrity. Redeem me and be merciful unto me," as he responded to his critics. Appealing directly to the Lord, he expressed his firm conviction that he had walked in integrity. The Hebrew word means sincerity, not faultlessness. He asked God to vindicate him, for he had renounced the ways of the wicked, declared his love for God's temple, and pleaded for deliverance from the fate of the ungodly, as we read in verses 1 to 10. Finally, he reaffirmed his resolve to live with sincerity, humbly asked God to redeem him, and acknowledged his need for mercy in verse 11 of Psalm 26. What happened next? God gave David the assurance that he stood in, quote, an even place, from verse 12, a symbolic way of saying that he was in a place of safety, accepted and protected by the Lord. As a result, He closed his psalm on a note of confidence and anticipation. Have the painful words of critics or the accusations of your conscience filled you with fear and self-doubt? Talk to the Lord. If you need to confess sin, do it. Then put your hope and trust in God. He will replace your insecurity and doubt with his supernatural peace. He has done that for me. He will do the same for you. The devotional thoughts of the day, the first, every 50 years, and the scripture from Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 10, with further references from Leviticus chapter 25 verses 8 to 55. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. The year of Jubilee is the close and climax of this section of Leviticus. Jubilee literally means trumpet or ram's horn, which was blown to proclaim the start of this special season, observed every 50th year, that is, after 7 sevens of years. This time had several economic implications. Land could not be worked and was returned to its original owner. Valuations of real estate and labour were actually based on how many years remained until the Jubilee. This reminded the people that they were merely tenants. God was the true owner, as we read in verse 23. It also kept land and wealth from becoming overly concentrated in the hands of a few people, and it provided debt relief for the poor. Spiritually, the year of Jubilee involved the same faith and obedience that we've seen mandated elsewhere in Leviticus. To obey in this area and give up material gains required faith and humility. But God promises to bless those who followed his command, verses 18 and 19. In addition, consecration, that is, being set apart, and freedom are interestingly linked in our scripture today, which is also quoted on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. What about the servitude mentioned here? This social institution was regarded as a way of addressing poverty and was regulated for a free society. A man who sold himself to pay debts should be treated with dignity as a hired man rather than as a slave, due to the Israelites' historical memory of slavery in Egypt and the fear of the Lord, as we read in verses 42 and 43. Ultimately, he, that is God, was their master, in verse 55, and also in Colossians chapter 4 and verse 1. The second thought, the victory of goodness. And we go back again to Galatians 5 and verses 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is joy, love, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, temperance. The next fruit of the Spirit is goodness. In every story, the good guy wins. Everyone has a deep inner sense that the side of good will win. Goodness rates high on any scale. Even when love, which is God's essence, is misused, goodness remains. Love can easily pervert it into disguised lust and selfish pleasure. Goodness, on the other hand, remains pure. Even though people do not really know what goodness is, from where it comes, or to where it leads, they still value it highly. No one, apart from someone really perverse, wants to be evil. We love, seek, and long for goodness. Goodness is precious and chivalrous. Goodness is fair and lifts people higher. Goodness is totally opposite to that which is low and dirty. To many, goodness is something only the fairy tale knights possess, something irrelevant in today's corrupt world. Sometimes, good or credulous people are considered somewhat dense, but it is really the opposite. Cynical scheming and coldness are foolishness. Goodness is connected to eternal wisdom and reaps where no one else harvests. It focuses on that which is lovely and gives hope to others. Like heartwood, goodness is a quality that is incorruptible, upright, and sound to the core. It is generous and considerate. It always makes room for yet another. The poor, the crushed, and those who are considered different feel welcome and at home in an atmosphere of goodness. The needy receive help and the distressed find peace. Goodness sees beyond old grudges and does not bring up past offences. Therefore goodness is always victorious over evil. In a dark and selfish world, it shines like a bright beacon, proclaiming hope, because God, who is good, exists. The facts of the day. Britain's first escalators were installed in Harrods in 1878. The Mona Lisa has no eyebrows. It was the fashion in Renaissance Florence to shave them off. Closing thought for today. Lord, help me to remember that I can't always fix things, but can always put my trust in you. Thanks for joining us this morning. We hope that the Daily Post has benefited and helped you through the day. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow morning, and we look for your company. We hope you have a blessed day. Bye for now.